Hello and welcome to the first of an occasional series that I'm going to call Hyper Tours and Tactics. It's kind of a one-shot. It may continue eventually, but I don't know if it will or not. The game you are looking at now is a recent release arena multiplayer medieval thing entitled War of the Roses. The purpose of Hyper Tours and Tactics, as you can see from this initial gameplay here, which is my first game of just kind of jumping into it and trying to figure out what the hell was going on. I had the basics down, but not enough to really do anything. So what I wanted this series to kind of capitalize on is using my noobness in an attempt to spare others of experience the same noobness. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the tutorial area, and I'll go over the very basics of playing the different characters, and hope that gives everyone enough of a groundwork to go into the game and learn it as they go, as I lie dead on the floor. Now there's actually two control options in War of the Roses. The first is basing your blocks and your attacks off of your key presses. The other one is based off of your mouse movements. I personally find key presses a little bit easier to deal with, so that's what we're going to be working with in this little guide here. So, let's let the announcer set the stage for this glorious time.
Behold the wonder of the Royal Tournament. Experience the colourful spectacle of banners, pennants, music, and festivity. Witness the contrast of the celebrative atmosphere and the grim determination of the heavily armoured contestants. You are hereby invited to partake and compete, to put your life on the line and test your mettle among the finest of men for the honour, glory, and roar of the crowd.
Alright, so as you can see in this first training event, we are armed with a happy little pole axe, which as you can see has an axe on the end for more damaging chopping, and a spear at the end. So what we're going to be doing here is this will show us how to do the basic blocking and attack motion. As you can see on the screen there, you've got that little orange ring. There's 4 of them. This is one of the only real UI elements in the entire game. This indicates the attack direction of, I'm going to say, your nearest opponent. It could change based on locations, or it may just be utterly random. It would not surprise me. That indicates the direction that you should block. How do you block? As you can see from here, the green shows the direction that you are currently blocking. Now you block by holding the directional pad. Now remember, we're using the keyboard blocking style, not the mouse blocking style. If it was mouse, it would be different. I'll go over at the end of this particular segment how it's different. Press the corresponding button, in this case A, while holding down the right mouse button. That will allow you to block in that direction, and you will hold it until you're hit. And now, this is the attack motion. The attack is done essentially the same way. If you're trying to do a chop, either to the left or to the right, it would be A or D, while holding down the left mouse button. Once you hold those down, you charge it as indicated by the on-screen indicator until it narrows down. Once it's narrowed down, you let it go and hope that your opponent isn't blocking, so you can get a nice little spray of blood. Up is a nice vertical chop down, same way. Click the left mouse button while holding down the W. And then your happy axe is brought down upon their heads. And hopefully that is the result of that action. The trick to doing combat is to see where your opponent is blocking, where they're attacking from, and to hit them in their vulnerable locations. If he's rising to strike like that, you can block, and then hopefully catch him off guard and hit him with another swipe or even a stab. I do not know the technical terms, I don't do fencing. But that is pretty much the basics of weapon-based combat. In the next section we're going to be looking at shields and one-handed weapons, but the principles of the one-handed weapons are pretty much the same. However, for blocking, we'll be using a shield, and I'm going to go over the various little details for that. Now the difference between this and mouse combat is you do not need to hit the corresponding WASD key to block. All you would have to do would be to click the left or right mouse button and move the mouse in the direction that you wish to block. It seems like it would be more responsive to the attack, but For me, I like being exact and knowing which direction I'm going to be blocking in, so that's why I go with that. So, we are going to move on to shield combat. And welcome back. As you can see, we are owning this poor pitchfork-wearing peasant, and this gives you a little bit more of an impression of overall combat. The principles are the same for the offense. The difference lies in shield combat. Shield is pretty much automatic forward blocking. You just kind of pay for it in pure damage output, based off of what I've seen. Now there are some shields that break after so many hits. Others that don't. That's something I'd have to get more information out of. But there's really not much else to dwell on here. It's left mouse clicking on the attack and right mouse click to raise the shield and keep yourself from getting stabbed in the gut. Now we're going to move on to our next event, which is the crossbow. And now we are on the battlefield with the crossbow. The crossbow mechanic took a little bit to figure out, but once I did, it became fairly easy, and I actually prefer the crossbow over the bow and arrow. Now, as you can see, whenever you reload the crossbow, which is after every single shot, you get this little mechanic, at least on this particular type of crossbow. There are other upgrades and such you can get for the crossbow that I believe changed the game up a little bit. However, this one, it's fairly straightforward. You use the right mouse button to bring it up, and you look at that little hook icon right there around the outside. Whenever the hook icon is near the little squiggly icon around it, you hit your left mouse button. That will allow you to speed up the rearming of your crossbow. And then once that happens, you can happily pick it back up, aim at your target, and pew. Now one of the things that happens is if you miss, as indicated by here, it slows down your aiming. And the other thing you'll notice in the center, which is another little new user interface add-on, is the number in the center. That is your ammunition. This is me trying to figure out who is who. The little bar on the outside of the number is how long until you get a new piece of ammunition. And that's pretty much straightforward. As you can see, the bar filled, I got a new round, reloaded, and continued to take fools out on this little castle here. Now our next location we're going to go over is horseback riding, so I will see you there. And our next glorious event is horse riding. This is something I've not really been able to play with outside of the training, but pretty much it's controlled with WADs. The W key speeds you up, the S key sends you slowing down, and you steer with the A and D keys. And jumping, when I'm not failing at it, is done by holding the shift key, which speeds you up, and once you are near the thing you are going to jump, at max speed, you jump over it, which hopefully will be done, well, sort of there, except now the horse is running on a fence. And it does not want me to run. But that's pretty much horse riding. Attacking from horseback is done pretty much the same way it is done on the ground. Not entirely sure what the special ability is in the center there, but as you can see, it's all done pretty much the same. Our next glorious event is the archery competition. So here we are at the delightful archery portion of the training here. And so this gives us a bit of an opportunity to see the archery mechanic of War of the Roses. As you can see, you bring up the aiming reticle by clicking your defense button, which is your right mouse button. This brings up the charming little ring here. Now, as you hold it, you'll see two little bars move to the center. This is your power meter. Once it reaches the center, that means your bow is at full strength, and once you're ready, you aim it and fire, and down goes the horse. Now on this, the goal of this section of the training is to hit each of the targets. Now to give you a bit of an impression of how high you have to lead the target, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark where I'm aiming and mark the target. This way you'll kind of get a visual representation of where you should be aiming. So here we go on the first strike. And we got it. Then on the second strike. Notice how we led above the target. Now I'm only going to be marking the shots that I actually hit it on. You'll know I hit it because the little letters above the target go away. And as you can see, this is where I'm aiming, and that's where the target is. And then the final most far away target. But this gives you just kind of a groundwork to go from for how you should aim and lead the target. You have to lead a little bit more with a bow than you do a crossbow, because crossbows are considerably more accurate. Arrows have a bit more of a curve, at least that's how I noticed. Well, that about wraps it up for the basic side of War of the Roses training, and headshots are always better. There are few things as therapeutic as getting a nice shot off with a bow or a crossbow, especially if you one-hit kill them. This is a one-shot video. I pretty much just wanted to do this so everyone can get kind of a groundwork for the game to make it a little bit more interesting, and so you're not jumping as blindly into gameplay as I did. So, until next time, my friends, as always, game on and take care.